Well, hello there. Welcome to the stream. Oh, I gotta turn this volume down. What am I doing here? I don't know why that's not. Oh, anyways, audio on these streams is always like a little bit of a challenge. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Let me get this stuff going. So I updated the game condition or the conditions module. So I updated the docs on it as well. We now have a min max value for all of these things rather than just a single thing. And that's important because it's going to be used in the game here. And let me make my screen smaller. Make sure I can see how big or small it is. Oops. Oh, there we go. That should be good. Those are my stats. All right. All right. Anyways, welcome to the stream, everybody. So yeah, what we're doing today is updating the magic. Because, oh man, yesterday I was doing the magic and we got a little further and it was good stuff. But yeah, it was more to do. For those of you who may not have seen it, I'll just show a brief thing. The thing is, there's different types of magic: instant attacks, projectile attacks, area of effect. Could be both of those. Could be area effect. Some affect the player, meaning you can cast it on the portrait. Others affect the bad guys, and still others like this one. This is cunning.
This will come in handy.
If I cast that, then I can cast it. Let me freeze the camera here. I can cast it on a player, or I can cast it on a bad guy. Now, right now, it's gonna. It didn't even do it on the right bad guy. Oh, because I'm not. Yeah, so that's another issue. Is it didn't actually target the bad guy, but we can fix this. It's gonna cause harm, but it's not supposed to. So some help, some hurt. So this is a spell I could cast on an NPC or an enemy for some reason, or the players. But then there's other spells like this one. This is actually it says it's magic missile, but it's not. I've been using this one to test my other spells. So for this one, we got that going on. And I forgot to change the settings, so it's not doing everything it's supposed to be doing. But this one's supposed to affect anywhere on the ground, but right now it's only targeting them. It's also supposed to go to the ground, not be in the air like that, but whatever. Anyways, you get the idea. There's a lot of complexity when it comes to spells. So sorry, I was drinking some coffee. So yeah, a lot to update here because there's that. So I realized that I have the way I'm structuring this is I've got my actual spells. So if we take the magic missile one, the one we've been working on here, magic missile, and this has all the details about the different skill itself, what skills required. This is the actual spell you learn. These are the spells you cast based on your mastery level of air magic. So if you have air magic, you can get novice, expert, master, grandmaster, and the spells you cast will get better. Their values change. So I can't keep all these values on magic missile. I have to keep them on magic missile, novice, expert, master, grandmaster. Things like the target's actor, that can be here. But even that probably shouldn't be here because I can imagine a scenario where, a healing spell, maybe the big ones can attack or target the NPCs, but other ones can't. I don't know. But also float, this is the distance, the range. That can't live here because maybe Grandmaster has a longer range. So maybe the target's actor can live here, but not the Grandmaster. So there's that. Yeah, so there's that. I think condition can actually be removed. So I'm going to do that right now. delete condition and go back. All right, so condition's gone. And for also targets actor, let me just clean that up right now because that doesn't need its float value, so we'll turn it off. The float value is still there. It didn't actually delete the data. It just hid it from this view, so I can't affect it. So, so magic missile targets an actor, can cast on player, and cannot cast on player. So that means I can't click the portraits. Otherwise, that would be true. And targets actors, which means it's targeting an actor. But again, I don't think that this is the right place for that. Let's look at these. Magic Missile Novice. So these are item attributes. Very similar to item objects, but they have a lot more details. All of these are in the dictionary section as well, which means custom data. So, item attributes have built-in settings. They have built-in stats. Item objects have similar built-in things like, an object can have attributes on them. It can have effects on stats. It can have all this stuff. We're not using any of that for this. We're using the item object in this case just to store data essentially. And same up here, we're using the item attributes to store data. And much of this data I'm not going to need, but I'm going to have to add a lot more too. So there's a lot that can be added, and I want to use this system. But I also want to use the conditions. The conditions system, which I just updated in the game modules bundle on the asset store. If you haven't been there yet, you can just go to infinitypbr.com, click on see all assets. That uses my affiliate link, and I appreciate that because if you then buy anything on the asset store, 5% goes back to Infinity PBR, which helps me fund new products. So if you click on the game modules bundle, I just updated this to 3.3.3, which has the added min-max values for the conditions, and also fixed the sort for stat modifications, which is nice. Just a quality of life thing, so that they're sorted by type then name rather than whatever it was before. So it's a little easier if you have a long list to find what you're looking for. And so conditions. The conditions aren't, with all the game modules, you can use them creatively. They don't have to be a thing like I'm poisoned. In this case, I'm going to create a new folder here. We're going to call this damages, and we're going to create a new one called damage. So game modules create condition, and this is going to be called damage magic missile novice. So hopefully the name is pretty clear. This is the damage that magic missile novice will do. And so in our main settings here, we have the display name. That's not going to take into effect. Usually if this were something like poison and you were going to use it in as an actual condition, then that matters. But instead, this is going to be an instant. So in a condition time, we're going to mark instant here. That means it just does one thing. The tooltip says it. But basically, this is great for healing and damage stuff. It affects one thing, and that's it. It's not going to have any effect on stats. When set to instant, it can't have an effect on stats. And that's that. And then the effect on points, this is going to be on points. So oftentimes, the stats system, which includes in this game, and perhaps yours if you use the game modules, hit points, has a point value. Generally speaking, you wouldn't want to change the points. That's supposed to be like a base value that doesn't change, but in some cases you might want to do that. And so when I'm tracking hit points or magic points, I do want to track points. They're not affected by things like equipment. Your points aren't. Your hit points max maybe, but that's a different stat entirely. Anyways, so on this one, periodic's grayed out because you can't do a periodic effect on points when it's instant. And we're going to find our stats, so it's going to be just hit points. And for magic missile, we're going to do, this is where the min max comes into play. This is going to be the base value. So when an actor gets hit by magic missile, they're going to get anywhere from 2 to 4 damage plus, this is an air magic. Yeah, so the caster's skill in air magic per skill point, it's going to be another 1 to 2 of the skill point. Now, there's an option here for per final stat. If for whatever reason you said, okay, my final stat value of air magic is 15. In my game, that's not how it works. Air magic's just a point counter, and it's keeping track of your skill points in air magic. Then you could do that. So like you could do might, where maybe you could say, or armor class. Let's say armor class, armor class. So let's say, okay, I'm gonna do 2 to 4 points, but make these 0 and 0. My final stat of armor class, we're gonna do negative 0.01 to negative 0.02. Oh, I guess 0.1 and negative 0.2 per final stat. So in other words, they're going to take this amount of damage, but they're going to take this much less. So their armor class will now reduce the amount of damage taken by this. One way of actually, no, that wouldn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Ignore everything I just said in the last little bit because the stat required is only on the caster. If you want to do a reduction, that's something you would do on the with an override method at this point, at least. So ignore everything I just said. Air magic. We're going to reset this. So magic missile novice is going to do 2 to 4 damage plus 1 to 2 per skill point in air magic. This is the novice level. And we're going to make multiple ones of this. You can add multiple point effects. So if you wanted to do, for whatever reason, another stat affected, like magic points, you could do that. So this one thing could affect both hit points and magic points at the same time. And over here, I can make this wider. There we go. And you can remove that too. So that's what Magic Missile Novice is going to do. I'm going to duplicate this 4 or 3 times so that there's 4 of them. And duplicate 2 of those. We're going to have to create new UIDs for all of these, and we're going to rename them as well. This is going to be Expert and Master and Grandmaster. All right, and then we need our create a new UID for these. UIDs need to be unique. That's the U in UID. And there we go. Now we can make the updates. So for the expert level, we might say 3 to 6 and 1 to 3 per point. And maybe at master level, it's 4 to 8 plus 2 to 4 per point. And maybe at grandmaster level, we get 5 to 10 damage plus 3 to 5 per skill point. Much more stuff there. So this is just the damage. So a condition is basically something that is given to a target by another target. In this case, if the target has stats and they have the air magic stat, then additional points will be affected. And actually, this is a very good point. Need to make this negative. Negative because we want them to lose hit points. Oops. There we go. So all of these are going to have to be made negative. Otherwise, it would be healing them. And that is not the point of damage. So essentially, when the spell hits a target successfully, that target, if they are marked, has conditions, will be given this condition. As an instant condition, it will basically take effect and immediately be destroyed. And that effect is going to be a hit points drain. That's it. That's all these do in this case. So now going back to my item attributes for spells, Magic Missile Novice. See, I had preset this up, but I just didn't actually do it. I have a list here. Now, all of these dictionaries are custom. There's different types that you can expose. In this case, I've exposed the condition type. You can have multiple of them. So, if you wanted to do a random one, you could choose a random one from this list, or if you want all of them, like if you want to do multiple conditions all at once with one action, then you could just go through all of them and add each condition one by one. But in this case, I only need one, so I will keep just the one, and we will use damage, magic missile, novice. And I've got my test one there. I can remove that, but novice. And then for master, we will choose master. For grandmaster and expert, we will choose grandmaster and expert respectively. All right. All right. And so I'm also going to organize this a little bit because the order is a little haphazard right now. But I can order this by using these fancy little check boxes. So I'm going to move condition all the way up. And we'll keep it underneath cost. So we got our spell prefab. That's going to be the in-world spell prefab. Our cost to cast, condition that we will implement, all the conditions. Our description. So this is where I might describe the damage and other things. Instant we don't need anymore because instant is handled by the... well, I guess it's no, it's not. This is a spell type. So it's not handled by the condition. It's handled by this. So I was thinking I need to make an update to this to allow enums. Is that how you pronounce it? Enums. Because I do have an enum list here. Where is it? Oh, this is it's the game modules one. There we go. Where I was working out different spell types. And this is wrong. I'm not actually going to use this, but I was thinking that might be cool to have a drop-down list rather than instant. But I guess I could probably work that a different way too. Either way, we've got instant. So this means if it's true, it's a Boolean, then it's an instant spell that does not have a projectile. It might target the world. It might target the player. It might target actors. And so we will put that up there, whether it's instant or not, whether it can cast on player or not, whether it targets an actor, that's an actor in the world. And that means when your mouse is over the target, it will snap to a target if you're over a target hitbox, essentially. And then I think what I want to do is add a new one called targets world, essentially. Whoops. Oh, that's interesting. That's supposed to switch off, but apparently it doesn't. So I'm going to add a new one to all of the spells, and it's going to be targets world. I think I'm going to use this, and we'll bring this all the way up next to the other target ones. And so this is basically, it's going to be a Boolean, so I'm going to expose that. And if it targets the world, it means you can click anywhere in the world and it will target that. So a fireball spell, any sort of spell that you can click on the ground or click on an object, and it will go towards that, or if it's instant, at that. Otherwise, if it can target the actor but not the world, then it will only work if you mouse over a bad guy or another NPC, an actor, essentially. And then the other thing here is targets ground. So I added this one for that spell I showed earlier, where if I were to target this goblin, their hitbox is actually in the middle. That's where their specific target is, in the middle of their chest. So for a spell that's supposed to come down and hit the ground at their feet or start at the ground at their feet, then the chest is the wrong spot. So with target's ground being true, it means that the particle will find the hitbox, but then find the ground, and then that will be the actual target. So it's a little better there. So portrait particle is going to be the particle that goes on our player portraits. I'm going to end up changing this, I think, but we'll see. And then target particle is going to be the particle that shows up when you are targeting a bad guy. Um, and spell prefab is the actual spell up there. So I'm going to bring all these up together. And portrait particle is currently a string because the way I had it set up before is that all of them had the particles already attached to the portraits, and I would just turn on or off the string. But I think I'm going to change that. It's probably going to end up being a prefab, particle prefab like the rest. But we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to put all my prefabs up there. I'm going to put my cost and condition right here in description, so the details right there. Optional stuff about describing how it acts here. Range would be appropriate up here by description. Maybe by cost, actually. So cost and range. That's how far away I can be, the player can be, in order to cast it. If it's a fireball, it's also how far the fireball will go before exploding. So fireball, you know, if I can't target a bad guy with a fireball because it's too far away, it would be silly if the fireball could actually go that far. Otherwise, I should be able to target no matter how far away it is. But I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want that to. I wanted to have the range aspect, but not all that, and deal with, you know, accuracy like I do with the arrows system. So it just explodes if it gets to that range. Stun is something that I will have, but I think this is actually going to be built out through the conditions, because eventually I could have a condition called, I don't know, something, and you know, so I think stun I can actually remove. I can always bring it back later. Duration is not needed. That's handled by the condition. So we can remove all of these. Is projectile. Okay, we do need that. So is a projectile means that it can, it's supposed to shoot out to the world. So if it targets the world or the actor, either way, it's going to start at the source and end up there and target that thing, but it's not going to be instant. So I think it would be appropriate to be by instant. I suppose instant and is projectile are two separate things. I'm not sure. We'll figure that one out. It could be that this is either instant or projectile. It's one of the two. It's not both, but there could be a third option. I don't know. And then AOE, area of effect radius, is going to be 0 if it doesn't have an area of effect. If radius is above 0, then that would imply that it is an area of effect. The other thing that I was doing yesterday, if I go down to my current version of these things and I look at Meteor in the inspector, I had this this fall off curve and the whether it can damage players or not. So the fall off curve is not yet built into the conditions or the dictionary. So that's something I would like to add, the animation curve there. And then there's other options about delaying the damage and stuff. So I think I'm going to keep this magic spell script, but I might do some editor magic to, you know, attach it to one of those item attributes I was just working on, and then based on the data in the item attribute, it might show different values here. So this is just going to be additional values that, you know, yeah. So all of this can go away because all of this is going to be handled by conditions. But I do want to add a custom basic thing like damage fall off, so the damage is modified by this fall off, so it's further away. And then we got this delay time frame so that the magic spell might not cause the damage right away, so it aligns better with the actual particle and the effect the particle has and such. So we're going to do that. We're going to update those as well. So if I go to my attributes, that should be good for now. We can always update that later, and then going back to them, we're going to work with just Magic Missile Novice for now. Actually, it's not. Magic Missile Novice isn't as fun of a spell. So, actually, yeah, we'll work on Magic Missile, but I'll just pretend it's something else. So, on our spell prefab, I'm going to make it this Fireball area of effect. We're going to say the mana target particle is fine, cost is fine, range 30 is fine. So condition, I'm going to keep it there just for sake of easiness. We don't need a description yet. This is not instant. It is a projectile. It cannot be cast on player. It does target an actor. It can target the world. It does not target the ground, meaning we can just shoot it wherever. And there is a radius. We'll make the radius 5. That's a pretty big radius. It shouldn't actually be that big, but for testing purposes, we'll just make it really big. It's a diameter of 30 feet, so it's a giant fireball. All right, so as is, let's just see what happens, and then I can start refactoring the code itself. I think this should basically act as it was yesterday. Oh, this dog is dreaming, and I've got my brother's dog with me, and he found a drain pipe that had a raccoon in it the other day. So now every time we go for a walk, he goes right over there. It's like a 5-minute walk there, but he knows exactly how to get there, and he sticks his head down. There was no raccoon today, but I think he's dreaming about it. That's my guess.
This will come in handy.
All right, so this is now our Fireball spell. So as you can see, that's the targeting the enemy. That's the kind of middle purple thing. That's the target, and then the radius is shown as this other sort of particle. Whoops. Let me keep my camera moving. And so now it's targeting the world. So you can see that it's saying, okay, you're going to hit the ground here, and that's the area of effect. And as we get closer, since it targets players, as we get close to those, it's going to see those and be like, oh, you're going to hit that player instead. And since there is a range, it can only go 30 meters away, and then it goes to the air. So it's saying, oh, you're going to target the air. So, oh, okay, yeah. There you go. So you can see how that works there. Again, if I hit the ground somewhere far away, whoops, goes and hits the ground. All right. And then if we hit a bad guy, so this is so I can hit the bad guy here, and it took damage. The other one was apparently not within range. And then this one is out of range, so I can't target it because it's out of range. But clearly, if I hit the ground near there, it will get hit. So it should, take damage because I can't target it. It's too far away. But I can target, it's sliding closer. But I can target the area near it. And then if it's within the area of effect. So that's fun, right? So now we just need to update the code. Because there are... Excuse me, I had to stretch all of a sudden. There are many ifs and elses. Ifs and elses. Yeah. So, let's look at the code and make this better. All right. I don't know which code we actually need, so I'm going to close all. And we're going to start, we'll start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. And that is going to be on these particles, which is actually the end. I guess the particles are the end of it all, so we're not starting at the very beginning. It's still a very good place to start. All right, all my particles are here, just throwing them all in the same place for now. So we have our Fireball area of effect, and we're going to look at our magic spell projectile. I think we're going to not have all these different versions, and instead I'm just going to use the magic spell from now on. And so we're going to go into magic spell. And we're going to take a few things here. We're going to take in public item attribute, or item attribute, spell item attribute. It's not going to be an uppercase S. And this is going to hold that spell, right? This is something that you can add at runtime. So this will be added at runtime actually. So when I instantiate the spell here, I'm going to add the correct item attribute. So I don't need to add it here. I'm going to add it later. And then we're also going to do public player, and we're going to call this, we already have caster. All right, so we already have caster. So let me write some notes here. This is the data for the spell. This particle is part of. That way you can reuse particles with multiple spells, and you don't have to worry about setting up fireball for every single potential fireball use. So we have a caster. That's good. This is the I don't. Let me think about this. So okay, I guess I should probably do this private. Make this that and do the old this method of doing things. Public item attribute, spell item attribute, and yeah, I guess we can do this method. There we go. So now if I can get it and set it that way, yeah. I was doing this method before because I had these overrides, and I'm not going to have the overrides anymore. So I don't need to use this whole set method and do those instead. I can do similar setups for player. We'll just kind of caster. And what else do we have? Where's caster? Right here. So we'll bring that up there. And then player index, not sure if I'm using that. Damage. So damage I'm not going to be using. That's going to be computed through the conditions. So we're going to basically ignore this. And I'm going to bring this down into a remove section. Once I remove it, there's going to be errors. And so I'm not going to remove it quite yet, but that's going to be a great way to find where I need to make updates from the current version. So we have player index. I don't know if I want to do player index, if I need player index, but I'm going to keep it just in case, and I'm going to put this may not need these. So I'm going to keep it, but I might not need it, and I'm definitely going to remove these. So I'm going to move these up. Wait a minute, not both of them. I already had a thing for item attribute. Interesting. Well, okay, we'll fix that. No, that's the one that we need up there. It's these ones. So we'll update these. So these are going to be our properties. And so dictionaries is going to be the dictionaries on the item attribute. So we're going to change this to spell item attribute dictionaries. Just an easier thing. It's really not important. You could do it the other way too. It doesn't really save anything. It's just human readable. Range is going to be our dictionaries value float for range. And just to bring that back up, make sure we get the spelling right on things. I hope everyone's doing a good day, having a good day or evening. for those of you who might be in a different continent, on a different continent. Where was this? We were looking at our attributes. And we got our magic missile novice. Oh, yeah, we're doing this one just as our testing. All right, so we have our range right here. And so that is the right word. So this is going to be range the spell can target, / travel, etc. The actor, player who cast the spell could be null if it was cast from an object. All right. I guess you can put that up here instead. And let's see, spell prefab. So this is going to be dictionaries, spell prefab, in-world prefab for the spell particle. That's important because this is the in-world prefab, whereas portrait particle is different. And we're going to start saying that up. I'm going to have to change it later, I think. I don't know yet. That will be handled later. So for now, we're going to say public string portrait particle. And this is going to be dictionaries.value string of portrait particle. And we're also going to audio clip, get an audio clip, portrait particle, audio clip. This is going to be dictionaries.value audio clip for portrait particle. All right, so that'll save those two here. Our target particle. So this is the when we're targeting something, the particle that shows up. So maybe in the future every single magic spell will have a different particle. Oh, I should zoom this in. Please feel free to tell me when I do something stupid, like not zoom in the script so it's hard to read. Anyways, it was target particle. It's right here, and that's going to be the target particle we have available, if any. And has target particle will be whether or not this is populated, I guess. It doesn't seem like I'm using it. So I'm going to put this to the may not need these section because I might not need that. All right. All right. And I'm going to make some quick notes. May be changed. Particle attached to the portrait's name of the particle. And then sound to play when portrait particle is activated. And then finally, world prefab for particle that indicates the actor target and goes in front of the actor target. Okay. Just easier to get the dictionaries. Human readable. All right. That should be fine. All right. Now, next is let's start with the damage. So I'm going to remove the damage straight up right there. And now we don't need to set damage, so I'm going to remove that. No need to set damage. And since we don't need to set damage, I'm going to remove that. Perfect. Now there's errors. That's fine. But what we do need is add another thing up here. So we're going to public condition. Actually, yeah, so this is actually going to be a public list of conditions, and that's going to be dictionaries dot values condition called condition. All right, so basically instead of pulling a single value, singular value condition, it's going to be values condition. We'll get the entire list of conditions here. That way I'll be able to go through it all. There is I think there's a random, if I did value condition, there would be an option here for random, I think. Let's see. Is there an option for random? Hold on. Oh, well. Okay, let me do it here. Yeah, so there's options for random or choosing a specific index. So if you had a multiple entries here, like let's say I had multiple target particles and I didn't care which one, I could just say get me a value prefab for the target particle. So value prefab target particle and then say true. And then it would give me a random one rather than the first one. Or if there was another, like an index, I could say give me false and then 3, and that would be index 3. So there's some cool ways there. That's helpful. I think practical use is for audio clips. Like if I did have some sort of audio clip that plays every time a magic spell is cast, and I want that to be a random one from 3, then I could use that method of doing it. But so just the audio clip would essentially, like this audio clip could essentially always return a random one, even though I just call this and I don't have to worry about the rest and making it random. That's just handled for me. So that's nice. All right, so we needed that condition list. We'll call it conditions, and then let's do all these while we're here. So we're going to say public bool instant is going to be dictionaries dot value bool for instant, and we're going to just copy this for is projectile can cast on player, targets actor, targets world, targets ground, and then we'll do AoE radius, and this is going to be value float and AoE radius, and you know what, I might as well do this AoE radius there too, and then we're going to do targets ground and targets world and targets actor and can cast on player and is projectile projectile. Okay, and can cast on player, targets actor, targets world, targets ground, and float. All right. So now we have all of those, and I think I'm going to make it so that can cast on player. Actually, I'm going to need to add a different one. I think I need to add a new one. We're going to add that right now here, and then I'll add it to the actual list there. And it's going to be can damage. If it targets the actor, so we're going to say targets player. And this means it can target the player itself. So if it's an AoE, an area of effect, and it hits a wall, it can hit the player too. It means if it's a bad guy targeting the player, it can target the player. There could be spells that don't target the player, for instance. And the player being you, the human player, and your characters. Your characters are all players. Actors are all players, but player specifies the human player. Actor specifies an actor in the world, because all the worlds are stage and we are all merely actors, not players. But all actors are players. So I'm going to create one more, and we're going to call this, let me get to my spells, we're going to call this targets player. Add to all spells, it's going to be a boolean, and we will put it up here. So can cast on player is specifically player portraits. And targets player is it can have an effect on the player. So maybe if can cast on player is true, this also has to be true, but that depends on how I do my logic, coding my logic. So there's that. All right, so we've got those all over, I believe. All the ones that we need for this purpose, I believe, right? I mean, I guess we can do cost as well. So I'll just copy and paste this one, and it's going to be a, is that an int? Float. Cost. Value float and cost. So we have our cost, target particle, portrait particle, range. While we're here, we might as well add description as well. Description. I should spell it right. Description. And this is going to be a string. All right. Value string. Okay, and now we've done everything. So these are all the properties that we currently have, all moved over in a nice, easy to code way. We might not need those. And we have our settable ones, which are spell, item, attribute, and player. And these are on the script itself rather than the properties from the item attribute. Of course, these won't work until this is populated. All right. So now let's find our errors and we'll fix them. All right. For setup, we do not need to set the damage. So we're going to, when we do the condition that affects hit points, we will add in some code to take into account luck, because in this game, in my game, your luck matters, and luck is a stat. And it basically will give you the better of two outcomes if your luck chance hits. So it's not you're always lucky. It just means like first you roll for your luck chance, and if that's true, then you'll get the better of two outcomes. Otherwise, you'll just get the first one, which might be the better one. It just won't force it to be the better of two. And okay. So arrow collision set damage, we don't need that too. So we can remove that. Oh, and we're actually going to remove projectile entirely. So we don't need any of this. So what do I want to keep from here? Now I've got a couple other magic spell, instant AoE. So we're going to bring in all of these, and we're going to merge these into one and then remove the ones we don't need. So all of these we merge into magic spell. What do we need from this? Magic spell has our item attribute. Do we need the skill? I do not think we need to know the skill. We've got the caster, we got the item attribute, and that includes everything we need to know about skills. So I can remove this. It's going to throw a lot more errors after I do all this. We can remove all of that. So AoE is going to, we don't need that. Can damage players is now handled from this targets player. And so we can remove that entirely. But we do want to keep this damage fall off. So I'm going to move that over here. And these are all not going to be showing up in the inspector. So I'm going to put these up here. So header AoE data damage fall off. We'll keep that. All right. We'll remove compute damage. That's going to throw some errors somewhere. And for setup, what are we doing in setup? In setup, we get the caster, item attribute, all that stuff. Set the caster, set the item attribute, set the index. And then, so arrow collision, that's where we get issues. So let me see what my setup is over here, and we can add this, merge them together a little bit. All right, so I'll copy that over. I'll delete it from here. And now we have nothing in magic spell projectile. Okay, so we're going to keep these three because I guess we're using them. I'm going to change it to be important. Is it need to be a clone? Did the other one have a clone? It was a clone. I don't think it needs to be a clone. Oh, actually, it does need to be a clone. I'll tell you why. Let me bring this over. So instead of doing this method, we'll do this, and caster.clone must be a clone in case the caster dies or goes away. So essentially, this is going to cache the value of the caster. So if this is a projectile and it takes 3 minutes to hit its target for whatever reason, maybe it's just flying around as a missile and it flies around the air waiting for a target. In that 3 minutes, whoever cast it could die, but their data needs to live on for doing damage. So that even if they die and somehow they're removed from the game for whatever reason, now when this spell hits, it will keep their data, including all their stats data, when stats are used for doing that. So that's important. It should be a clone for now. Maybe it will be changed later, but you know. So set item attribute, we will do this. So the item attribute now is actually spell item attribute. So we can say up here with our setter, we can say equals item attribute. I guess our caster can be set the same way. So we should do that. Okay. Player index, we will keep the player index. I don't know if I'm using it. But I'll keep it here just in case. Player index is like the index in the portrait row. So there's 4 by default, but yeah, there could be more later. All right, then specific to this override, arrow collision. So this is for particles, or not particles, for projectiles, they'll have an arrow collision. I need to rename it, but an arrow collision script. And the arrow collision has information about the projectile itself, essentially, who the shooter is, aka caster, the damage, etc., which of course we no longer are using that method. Even arrows will have an arrow damage thing, and we'll just change their stuff. So that's another update I'll have to do. But we're using a different method. So we're going to update this, but for now, this will still exist. There will still be an existing of arrow collision. So what we'll do is, instead of saying it here, we'll say set up arrow collision, set up collision, and we'll pass stuff in there. I don't know what we need to pass in there yet. So we'll set up collision here. And that's going to be all this stuff. And we're going to get our arrow collision. And if there is no arrow collision equals null, then we'll return, i.e. there's no arrow collision, so nothing to set up. And instead, so we'll do try get component instead. So if try get component, let's see, if try get component type arrow collision out arrow collision, if not, then we return out arrow collision. There we go. There we go. So try get. If not, then return. Otherwise, we've got arrow collision. And so we will set the shooter to the caster. So I'm going to, yeah, we don't need to pass that through because it gets set first. Range is going to be range. If range is greater than 0, set range to range. Why do we need this? I see. It doesn't matter. Either way, we're going to set the range. So, and then radius. So again, either way, we're going to set this. Okay. And that sets up our collision. Sets up the arrow collision script on the projectile itself. May remove this later. And that is good for now, I think. We can get rid of this. We will keep this for now. We will get rid of this. Okay, now let's go to the next ones and merge these as well. Whoa. All right, so okay. We're going to bring this over. This is our AoE for damage fall off. This is our instant stuff, delay initial damage, and don't know if we need all that. Okay, actually I'm going to use this one instead. And it's not really, so I mean technically we might delay a projectile too. It might hit it and then do something, then a second later do the actual damage. So the delay might also be applicable to other things rather than just instant spells. I don't know if we'll need those. We might. This is going to be private stuff for handling our delays. So we'll move these over. Properties. May not need these. Whoops, wrong button. Delay handling. So I need to bring game into this. So using static, Infinity PBR, Legend of the Stones game. All right. And then I don't know about these two. We might need those two. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to need all of this. I'm going to need the update. So setup collision. Move that down. Move this down here and then lower. Don't think we need either of these. We're going to replace them. Okay. So our update, and then we need our trigger AoE damage. Guess we kind of will need all of these. Okay. Now just remove. I'm going to bring these over, but I don't know if we'll need them, so I will put them in the may not need these category. And delete everything else from here. And this one will also delete everything else in here. Okay. All right, so now we'll fix this logic. All right. Delay handling. Okay. Time now from game time module. We are delaying or not. That's an easy to use boolean. Do not delay, i.e. there's no delay. Let's use our logic down here. All right. All right. So initial damage is going to be changed to initial effect, and AoE is going to be AoE effect. Where's trigger get called from? Cast spell out point. Okay. So the radius is no longer going to be cached here. The position is. So yeah, because the radius is handled by the item attribute. So we're going to remove this, and remove this. That'll give us some errors down here. We're going to use radius and oh, interesting. Wait a minute. Okay. So there is an initial radius value, which comes into play when we do a delayed thing. It might do a delay. So like, oh, hello, Merrick. How are you? If in a spell like if you saw the one earlier where a rock falls down, hits the target, and then smashes apart, that's the area effect. So there could be an initial radius of 1 meter, and then the area effect could be a larger radius. So that's why we have this initial radius value. If AoE effect is after initial effect, this is the radius of the initial effect. Amount of delay before initial effect and amount of delay before AoE effect must be lower or higher than initial. They can be the same though. And so we're going to rename this to delay initial effect, not damage. We don't need to add that. And again, same here, effect. All right. Okay. So back to our update. So this is the magic spell that happens. And trigger. So I need these to not run unless we've triggered it. Or this is, yeah, so these are going to be the methods that actually do the actions. So I'm going to say if not triggered, then return. And trigger is now it's going to be updated to just be triggered equals true. And we're going to change this to active instead, actually. And this is going to be in our privates. All right. General privates. And this is going to be private bool active equals false. And yes, then we'll do public bool auto trigger false. If true, magic spell will auto trigger. And essentially that means in our update, if it's active or auto trigger. So it's not, if it's not active and we're not auto triggering, then we return. But if we're auto triggering, then we'll go through, and if we're active, we'll go through. So only run if we are active or auto triggering. I think that's right, because this is the thing that will initiate the transfer of. Oh, hey, Jason Wyman again. Hardcore math. I didn't see a latest update in Discord from you, but I saw the other one, and I thank you for that. But I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so essentially the way I'm thinking is that this is the thing that triggers this damage. I might have to change this. We'll see. What I'm thinking right now is this is the thing that handles the damage. And regardless of what kind of magic it is, whether it's instant, targets the player, portraits, not, whatever, it's all going to run through this. And if it is instant, then it's just going to be auto trigger true. So it'll do the initial effect and the AoE effect. And if there is no delay, then they happen immediately. Otherwise, there's a delay. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. Refactoring constantly, so we can always change it later. All right. So trigger is just going to make active true. What else does trigger do when we did it before? Again, this came from this actions right here where we're triggering. So we set up and then we trigger it. Setup comes first, then triggering is making it active. Essentially, that means the next frame it will do its stuff. Why were we casting the radius? We were passing the radius because we needed to pass in the radius, but now the radius is being stored on the item attribute, so we don't need to pass that in anymore. Okay. And trigger is essentially going to say trigger. So do we need to do this? So this is the position of the object. If it's an instant one, it will be at the position of the bad guy or the place in the world where it's being cast. So we do need to store this. But this is better stored in the setup rather than position of this spell object. So yeah. And you know what? I think we can do better than that. Where is this used? Yeah, so we're really caching it, essentially, is what we're doing. So I'm going to also cache it here so that it updates when it's active. But for now, we'll also do it in the setup as well. So it'll update it in setup, and then once it's set up, if it's a projectile and it's moving, then this will need to be updated later. And so we'll do that there. So we don't need that here. So if we are not delaying, then it can just handle it. But I think since we have this auto trigger thing now, we can add that here where we say auto bool auto trigger auto equals false. Just bring these down. And then we'll say auto trigger equals auto. So that way, if we are auto triggering, then we'll just do all this stuff anyways. So I think I'll just temporarily zombie code this. And then let's see, delay effect is less than initial. Then we'll set that. So this is just ensuring that the delays are set properly. And so we will handle this in the setup as well. So script management's basically script management. I'll call it that because it's basically just ensuring that that's set properly. And then we will add these as well. So this is saying time initial. That's when the initial effect should happen is going to be now plus the delay, similar to the AoE. If the delay is 0, then it's essentially saying do it now. And the update, these check that. So we can get rid of all this now, and trigger now just says active equals true. And we're not passing anything in. So So I guess we don't really need this at all anymore, because now for this method is called cast spell at point. I think that means it's always instant, right? Active player, spell on deck. Damage, we're ignoring that now. Not necessarily. So, whoops. So I'm just going to remove it. But I don't think we need the trigger anymore. I also don't think we need that anymore. So let's go to our setup here and remove damage from the signature. Is that the right word, Merrick? I believe that's the right word. The signature of this method. Merrick has been kindly helping me understand the right terminology to use, because I don't always know the right phrases and the right names of things. Oftentimes that's the case, and I want to do better, so I'm trying. All right, so I don't think we actually need trigger at all anymore. So I'm just going to remove it. See if that has any issues. Okay, so now on update, if we are active or auto triggering, then we'll set our position once more, cache that, and we'll do the initial effect. So if we already did the initial, then we're going to return. And if the time initial is greater than now, then we'll return as well. Basically, don't do this if we have already done it. Whoops. And get my grammar right. And then don't do this if the trigger time hasn't been reached. All right, and then if it is, then we're going to handle the actor's damage. So this is on the bad guys and NPCs, and then the player damage on our players. Initial radius comes into play here only if time interval. Yeah, I guess initial radius does come into play if it's greater than 0. Can I make this more clear? Maybe. Public pool. I guess I know if we have I can make a property for this. So public bool separate effects equals if, well, true if delay AOE effect is greater than delay initial effect. So if that's not, there we go. So did I spell this wrong? Separate? I did. So if the delay of the AOE effect is greater than the initial effect, that means we're doing separate effects. And that comes into play down here, because if we are doing separate effects, then we need the initial radius. Otherwise, we need the radius. Is this not a thing? I thought it was. Oh, it's AOE radius, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll change those there. Everywhere else, okay. So same deal here. So we can cache that. And then we will say if not separate effects, then we'll say did AOE equals true too. So basically, if we're not separating the effects, then this right here is going to affect everybody. And we can say that we did both, and then the player, the AOE effect won't even come into play because we have done it, and so won't try to do it again. All right, so that should work. Okay, trigger effects on actors and players, and we're going to change this to effects, actor effects, and handle player effects. Okay, and then mark whether we mark that we did what we did. All right. And then right after the initial effect happens, we're going to do the AOE effect. So let me just move that down so they're kind of in the order. I don't know about you, but I like to have the methods, if possible, in the order that they are activated. I don't know. It's just a thing. I don't know why. See, you know everything right off the top of your head. Not everything. No, I do that from time to time. I forget that. Oh, apparently I must. Oh, god damn it! I've got this giant PC computer next to me, and when I stretch, sometimes I hit my elbow on it, and I'm always worried because the edges are on the top is fairly sharp, and I once cut my elbow on that. Anyways, talking this much makes me tired. I could never read a book out loud for very long because I start yawning. I think by talking I'm not getting enough oxygen, so I need to, something like that. And so I stretch and yawn a lot, or I'm not getting enough sleep, or both. All right, so we do our initial effect. We'll do these handlings in a bit. Then we do our AOE effect. Don't do it if we already did it. Don't do it if we already did. And then don't do it if time hasn't yet been reached. And then handle our actor effects at the AOE radius, which is always supposed to be equal to or greater than the initial radius. Oh, no, this is just the AOE radius is set by the spell. So set by the spell. and handle player effects. And then mark this as true. So mark what we did, and then trigger effects on players, actors. Now I suppose I could merge these into one method because we're doing something very similar here, but I'm not going to because it's only this many lines and it makes sense. So I'm not going to merge them into one method. All right, so let's do our handling. We've got two types of handles. Handle the actor effects and the player effects. And again, I want this one lower because I am developing a complex. Okay. So handling the actor effects, we got our radius and whether we did initial or not. So initial true, yeah, okay. So if initial is true, then we're going to be adding the actor to this initial actors thing, and so otherwise it's false. So I'm going to add another cache boolean here. We're going to say var is initial equals separate effects. Again, if it's separate effects, then true. Otherwise false, and we'll pass that through here because, and I think I may have done this wrong here. Separate effects means that the AoE will happen later, so I need to do the initial radius now and the AoE if it's false, if we don't have separate effects. Correct. So if initial is if AoE is greater than the initial, then we're separate. If they're equal, then we're not. If it's less than that, then we're not. Okay. That's correct. So I had this backwards. Okay, so I can just pass in separate effects because that's true or false, and it's true. So if we're doing separate effects, then this is initial, otherwise it's not. And again, if it's separate effects, then we're going to pass the initial radius, otherwise we'll pass the area of effect radius. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So, so now we're going to get all the actors in this radius. In my head, I'm all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, what happens if it just targets a single actor? So we're going to have to handle that too, but we'll finish this first. Handle actor effects. For each actor, in actors and radius, I made a nice little utilities class. So actors in radius of this position, this radius, with our layer mask. If it's initial, we'll add them to our initial actors list, keeping track of who already got attacked. Else, if the list already contains it, we'll continue. So this means later, if we did the initial run and now we're doing the area effect, if the actors already had their damage been done, then we're going to just continue. We're not going to do it twice. Yeah. All right. So distance is our distance between where we are here, the position of this object, and the actor being targeted. And that's going to change the damage with the damage fall off curve. And then we will do our player got hit, caster, and I'm going to change this to be got hit. Wait, let me see. Hold on. What are we doing? So we need the damage mod. We need to also pass in essentially I mean, I guess what we really need to pass in is the spell itself. Spell item attribute. I think that's... We need to know who cast the spell, the details of the spell, and then the modification for the distance damage. And in my player got hit here. Yeah, I'm gonna make this do an update here. So public void got hit by spell. We'll say that. Got hit by object. We'll say that. Could be a spell, could be something else like an arrow. So we need the attacker, which is going to be I have stats. Attacker. Oops. Attacker. And then we need the item attribute, object data, and then float damage mod or distance mod. We'll say distance mod equals 1f. So we don't need to pass that in. And then we'll just do debug.log. This is on the player actor, so we're going to say name got hit by object data dot object name sent by attacker dot name get owner name with a mod distance mod of distance mod. All right, just basically spit out everything I want to know, just to make sure everything's being passed. All right, so now we're going to pass in got hit by object instead. All right. So handle player effects. So if it cannot damage players, then we return. So we have this targets player. So we're going to say if not targets player, then we'll return. So this means that essentially yes, if can cast on player is true, then targets player will have to be true too. So if it doesn't target player, then return affect players. And then if it's non-initial and initial players, we already hit the players in the initial attack. I see. So if we're not doing the initial attack, we're doing the AoE, and the initial players have already been attacked, and this is the initial players. Wait, what does this refer to? Oh, true if we've attacked the players. Oh, I see. I see. So if we've run through this already, then yeah. So we're gonna say have attacked players. That's more clear. So have attacked players says true if initial was true. That way we don't attack the players twice. We don't want to attack the players twice. That would be a bad idea. Unless you're the enemy, I guess. All right, so we get our distance from the player position to our position of the object. So this is like if I accidentally cast a spell really close to me, then I hurt myself. But if it's a little bit further away, it won't be as bad. So if the distance is greater than this radius, then it means that we are out of the range, so no need to affect. And then otherwise we get the fall off for our damage mod. And for each player, we're going to do similar to this other one. We do a got hit by object. So got hit by object, and we'll just do the same thing. And this method is on player actor. And I think player actor derives from player, so I can move this method into my player class since it affects both of them. So for now, I will just throw it right here, and that should work for both. Okay. All right. Can I merge these two together? Probably. Let's see. What do I duplicate? I duplicate the fall off and this, but not really. It doesn't. I mean, I could do distance this radius. So I could do this private get damage, or just damage mod. It's going to be, we need two things. We need position 1, oops, vector 3, position 1, and then vector 3, position 2, and radius, so that's going to be a float, this radius, and that will be this, and distance is this, and this is going to be position 1, position 2, and this is going to return a float. Yeah, so we can do that, I believe. And so instead of doing damage mod equals that, we can do damage mod and pass in our actor transform dot position, and then our position, and then our this radius. And we can do that down here too. And then we can get rid of this. We can get rid of both of these. And this is just going to be, what was it? It was player. So we already do the distance here, so it's not super, it's not crazy more efficient. It doesn't really, yeah, it's barely even more efficient either way, but all right. My gosh, I just got an alert. This is very important. President Biden wants to ban assault-style rifles, and now they want me to vote yes or no by replying yes or no to this unsolicited text message. What the F? My God. Stupid. And yes, ban assault rifles. Nobody freaking needs those. That's stupid. But I hate this unsolicited political text messages. Reply yes or no. My lord. My lord. Okay. So, this is actually, all of these are taken into account position 2. So I actually don't need that there. I can just put that in. And we can call this start position instead. Make it more clear. So start position to the position, or target position actually. That's actually more clear. And then the radius. And so I get distance up here to see if the distance is greater than this radius. So I need to do that either way. So there's that. Yep. Set whether we've attacked the players in the initial round. All right. Do the effects on the players. Ensure, I already have a note there. Okay, don't need to do that. All right, so computes the modification from the fall off curve modification. All right, that should be decent enough. And the actual effects, the transfer of the conditions and all that will happen in this got hit by object, which we will handle later. But now what happens if this is a thing that doesn't have an area of effect at all? If it doesn't have an area effect, then both of these methods don't really work because they both take into effect or account a radius. So let me just do a quick comments on these here. This will handles the effect on either the initial radius if if that's separate from timing from the AoE, or we'll handle both at once. Handles the AoE effects should only trigger if initial and AoE are separated. Does the effects on the actors, not the players, actors in the world. And finally, does the effects on the players' portraits. All right. Comments are commented. Okay. Now, what happens when it's a point? When it's no area of effect. So when AoE radius is 0. Let me refer back to my actions here. Setup. So this is cast spell at point. This is going to be a point in the world, not a... Oh, maybe we do have a target. Let's go back. Let's see. Try to cast spell on enemy. And in this case, we do have an enemy. So we'll cast spell at point with that enemy's player attached to it. So there is a chance that there is a target player. And, oh, we removed set target player. So let's add target player back in. Do we have target player here? Whoop, target player. Player. We have a lot of mentions of players. Did I include a target player? I did not. So that sounds like what we need to include. So that's going to be up here. We'll do private player target player and public player target player. Whoops. And we'll do the get set for that. And then in our actions, let's see, we will say target player, add that to the setup. And then here, actually, let me use the fancy method of doing it automatically. I think that worked. Did it work? No. Whoever that did not do it. All right, let me just do it myself. I'll do it myself. Oh. I see. I see now. So I need to do player target player equals null. So it might be null, and that's fine. And we will say target player equals target player. Do we need to clone this? No, I don't think we need a clone. The target, if not null, or just say it might be null. All right. So if there's a target player, that's the one we're going to attack. So that means in our update here, and auto equals false by default. So, all right. In our update here, we will say if So why I'm hesitating all of a sudden is targets player here doesn't say this is like only targets one player, or rather targets actor. That means it can target an actor rather than just targeting the world. For literally for just, targeting purposes in the game. When I set the target player, that is essentially saying, hey, this is only going to affect solo target. So maybe we'll call this solo target player. That would be more clear. Yeah. And then we'll include that here. Solo target player. And make this solo target player as well. Cancel that. Sometimes it gives me a warning and I'm like, I don't know what you're all about here, so cancel. Solo. Okay. Okay, so solo target player is that. So auto trigger is going to be automatic. If there's no delay, then it should also be automatic. So essentially, if delay is 0, then it's automatic, right? Is there any reason to not have both a delay and have it be not automatic? I guess there could be. So, I don't know. And in our update here, if it's not active yet. So if it's not active, how do we set active? Do we ever set active? We don't. That was when we had that trigger method before. I don't think we need that. Because yeah. So if we are auto triggering, I don't even think we need this. Because the only reason it should go through this update loop at all is if there's a delay. And then it's going to be checking to make sure the time has passed. But if there's no delay, then this should just happen. And Yeah. So how about this? We're going to remove auto from this entirely. We're going to remove auto trigger here. And instead, what we'll do is private bool auto trigger is going to be delays both equal 0 or are less than and equal to 0. Oh, we already have that. Do not delay. Well, smart me from yesterday. So what we'll really say in our update loop, if do not delay, we'll make this has delay. So if we have delay, wait, come on, what am I doing? This doesn't matter at all. Because if there is no delay, then both of these will trigger. What we care about is the solo target player. So what we need here is a private bool has solo target player, and that's just going to be if solo target player is not equal to null. So in our update loop, we're going to say if we have a solo target player, then return. This basically says we are targeting one player, so no AoE. Everything below doesn't happen. Yeah, so that's that. If we have a solo target player, then we don't do any of this. But on setup, if we have a solo target player, then we just need to do the thing. And that's where the auto was supposed to come into play. But yeah, I can't. I suppose there might be a case where there's a delay and a solo target player. Shoot. I want to say, but that's not going to happen, but it might. It might happen. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll say if we have a, okay. If target solo player then return, and we will create a new method that do all the actions on the solo target player, and we'll say if if we don't have a target, then return false, and then this will happen. If we do have a target one, then this will return true, and we will not do the rest. And then here is where we'll handle delays of that. Now, there is no AoE. I mean, technically there could be an AoE, right? No, because if we're going to do that, then they both are going to be AoE, area of effect. So if we're targeting a single player, that means there is no area of effect. A solo player, then there's no area of effect. Okay, and this is also where we need to handle whether we're doing the party or not, or a person in the party, I suppose. Because this is the one script that manages that aspect. So the one thing it does is it organizes who gets attacked when, and where it passes the effects on at the right time to the right parties, essentially. That's what this script does. And in fact, I should say this up here. I like to write myself notes when I think about it. So June 16, 2022. Essentially, this script is in charge of passing the effect data to the right parties, actors, players, AoE or not, etc., at the right time. Delays, and so on. That is the only thing it does. And it lives on the magic spell particle itself. Yes. So it takes in the information, it is where it is, and then it divvies out that information to the right parties who are going to be affected. That's all it does. All right. Now that I got that out of the way, let's do this handling on the player. Where is it? Down here. So target solo player. If it's targeting the solo player, then it's going to handle effects, but only on a specific player. So now I've got to figure out, this is supposed to handle whether it's a single actor in the world or a single or a person in your party, or it could be the whole party. That's a third option. Do I have a thing for that? I'm going to remove auto trigger. Conditions. I'll keep that just in case. So I do have player index. That might come into play. Okay. So I'm going to keep player index. That's going to be important now. So I'm going to move that up here. And I'm going to add one more Boolean, and it's going to be private bool solo target is player portrait. Make it a little bit more clear. And specify, even though I know it defaults to false. So private bool. I liked using the human readable properties, even though I know I don't really need it. I just like it. Solo target is portrait. Okay, so now in our area where we're targeting a single thing, this comes into play because so we're going to say if try solo effect, or we'll just do, let's see, can we handle the actor effects? Can we do those? This radius? No, that's going to be different. So solo effects on actor, and then solo effects on player, and we'll create both of these here, and I'll do it in this order so I have the right one on top for my, oops, all right, where'd they go? It's been doing this recently where it like skips to a weird area. And then at the end here, we're going to return true. Just just to make sure that goes back. Okay, so we're going to return if we're targeting the portrait, then we're going to return. And then for this one, if we're not targeting the portrait, then we return. And then also for this one, only or return if we are not targeting the player portraits. Return if we are targeting the player portraits. All right, and then all right. Note for myself, if index is -1, that equals all player portraits. So there's going to be some spells where you can cast it on all the player portraits. So like, let's say speed or haste or some spell like that. Maybe at earlier levels you have to choose which player you're casting it on, but at higher levels you can cast it on everybody all at once. So it just does everyone at once. That's a little better. So there's a chance that all players will be affected, even though it's a solo effect. But that's okay. I think that works. All right, so if it's a actor that we're targeting, so we need to pass this in. This is going to be an important bit with player index as well. And so this is going to be in the setup. Let me do that right here. So we have player index is being passed in, and solo is being passed in, and bool solo target is portrait equals false. Okay. User clicked on a portrait. Okay, so we'll just need to make sure that in our setup we pass in the right things at the right time on the actions method, essentially. And really, it would make more sense to have this over here, and even more sense to have it over here. So the caster, the spell data, whether we're the target, if it's a solo target, whether we're doing the portrait, and if so, the index. Yep, and it's possible that this could be null even when these are not null, etc. Okay. Nope. Whatever I did, I don't want to do. Okay. So that brings us back to our solo effect on actor and solo effect on player. All right, solo effect on the actor. So now we have an actor, and we're going to confirm that. So if solo is null, then return. Confirm that we have a target. If we don't, then I'll throw an error, so we don't want to do that. And then we're going to do the same thing that we do down here, handle actor effects, but only on the single one. So it's just going to be the solo target player, got hit by object, caster, the spell data. Damage mod is not going to be included because it's exactly on them. So there is no mod there. No distance mod required. Okay. So this is just got hit by object with the caster and the spell data. Yeah. And for the players, we will do if player index is greater than 0, then we will do always does that when I have a comment. Then we will do game.players, game.data.players, player index, got hit by the caster spell item attribute. Okay. It's not always damage. And then we'll return. Otherwise, for each of our player in game.data.players, player.got hit by object caster spell item attribute. That's that. Okay. Okay, that should work. So that should handle everything now. So it handles area effects on targets, area effects on the separation of initial and later. It handles instant effects on the players, including the whole party or a single target. And I'm sure there will be issues, and I'm sure there are things that I don't need. We do need position, though. That's something we need. We definitely need to keep that. I guess I'll put it down here. But it doesn't look like we need this, and I don't think, yeah, we're not using this at all. So I'm going to remove that. Has target particle. Doesn't look like we're doing that. Okay. So our position I'm going to put up here. Oops. Okay. I think that's good. Set player index. We don't need that. That's going to give an error somewhere. Yeah, because we're doing player index there. All right. I might remove this later. Do not delay. Turns out I probably don't need all of this stuff. But we'll leave it there. Who knows what I need? Maybe I need more. All right. Now, I've got errors here. Why? So cast spell at point. Solo target player. So let's just quickly go through, make sure I don't make a mistake here. So we're casting a spell at a certain position. It might be a solo target player. And if that's the case, we are going to, let's see, spell prefab. So we get our spell prefab. That's the in-world particle. So we'll call this in-world spell particle spell object might not be a particle, I suppose. So in-world spell object is the spell on deck spell prefab up here. If it's null, then we're going to throw an error because we need that. And then we're going to instantiate it to new spell object. That's fine. Then we're getting our magic spell. So this is, we can change this. So every one of these prefabs is going to have the magic spell on it. So I just need to... So before I was separating out different scripts for different types of magic spells. Now we're not doing that anymore. We're simplifying it. So we really just need to say magic spell equals new spell get component magic spell. And instead of that, we're going to do a try get. So we're going to say if not try get component out magic spell return. Okay. And we'll throw an error here too because that needs to be on there. So we're going to say spell object dot name is missing its magic spell component. Okay, so make sure we have that. Otherwise, we got our magic spell. That didn't matter then either. So this is the only other stuff we were doing. And then set target player, but we are doing that now here, so we don't need any of this either. Why is this? Oh, we move the player index over. What do we have here? Setup has the caster, item attribute, solo target player, whether it's a portrait, and then the index. Okay. So false, and index doesn't matter. So when we're casting out a point, this is coming from whether we mouse click or on an enemy. So there's no portrait. That means we definitely did not do a portrait. So I can just say, I don't even need to say that. All I'm doing is solo target player, and that might be null. I don't care at this point whether it's null or not, because if it came from at mouse click, it's null. If it came from on an enemy, it's not null. But either way, I'm going to pass it through. It defaults to null anyways, correct? So that will be fine. And should have set up a spell. And then we're clearing the spell on deck, resetting our cursor, and pause level. But pause level, yeah, I guess. Yeah. So this is basically handling the pause level. So when we have a spell on deck, the game pauses, so you can choose which bad guy or something to click on, because it's not a quick game in that regard where you have to be quickly clicking and doing all that. Instead, you can take your time and choose which one you want to attack, or choose where to attack if you're trying to, do an AoE that affects a lot of bad guys at once. All right, so that should work there. I like that. That's much simpler. If I didn't have to check for these null things, then it would be even smaller, but that's okay. So we'll do that. So let me just write some notes here. So this is going to be grab the prefab we'll use. In fact, that's that. Okay. Then instantiate the prefab at the right position. Instantiate. And then do the setup. Do the setup of the magic spell component. And then do a debug and then clean up things. Okay. And casts a spell at a specific point in the world, and optionally include a specific actor or player actor that it should be targeting. Okay. That's a cute dog laying over there, sleeping for 2 hours straight, every 5 minutes moving to a different spot, then sleeping again. I wonder what it's like to be a dog. It's probably not that fun. All right, so we have our cast spell at point. We still have an error, though, because I think the other one is having an issue. Yeah, so that's this one. So cast spell projectile. Let's see. It's used on, again, mouse click on enemy. So this is when it uses a projectile. Is there a difference between this and the other one? Oh, maybe this is why we had trigger. This is why we had trigger, I think. So earlier I removed the whole trigger and auto trigger and stuff. I might have to bring that back. So the difference between casting a spell at a point, casting a spell at projectiles, whether it is a projectile or not, right? And that, I mean, we can look at this trying to cast a spell on an enemy. So if it's a projectile, then we do the projectile one. Otherwise, we do the point one. And then we do the, if it targets the ground, then we set the position to be the ground, not the thing we clicked on. And if it's a projectile, though, we don't necessarily want it to trigger right away. And so that's why these are separate, essentially. Oh, good, they're right next to each other. Because I think they otherwise do the exact same thing. So we instantiate it, which is the value prefab, spell prefab. We at the position, but in this case, the arrow spawn position. And then we do the setup, and then we do the cleanup. So these are the same thing. I'm going to make them, I'm going to add a new thing here called bool is projectile equals false. And so instead of cast spell projectile, we're going to say cast spell at point. And let me go back here. And the point we're going to use is the arrow system, arrow spawn position. So going back up here, cast spell on enemy. So cast spell at point. And the point we're going to use instead of that position is this. We're going to say, so we still need, okay, so if it's a projectile, we don't necessarily have the target player because it's going to be shooting forward. Another actor might walk in front of it, therefore that would be the one. So we're going to say null, but true for projectile. Okay, and then on our other one, we'll do the same thing. Cast spell at point, and then or null and true. So this is going to be in our at mouse click. If it's a projectile, then we're going to just cast it at that point. So we need one more thing. And that's going to be, so true point. The point is where we clicked. So arrow system transform position, spell on point. One more thing, vector 3 target position. And that's going to be equals vector 3 dot 0. Oh shit, can I not do that? Can you do null? No. So there's no default for damn it. Okay. So target position. All right, let me fix all these then. Okay. So if it's a projectile, we're going from the arrow system to the target, which is point. Oops. And there's no target player and is a projectile. And for this one, we're getting the positions, could be the ground or where we clicked. So we pass in that and that and that's that. So we're going to pass in both. This is not going to get used. So it's just going to pass in the same thing. It's not a projectile, so we're not going to make use of the target, but we have to pass it through, I guess. And then there's two other spots for this. So again, it's a projectile. So try at the enemy. So the enemy dot position is the target position. Transform dot position. So basically, again, we don't have the target enemy, or because this enemy would be it, but they might move. We're going to fire the projectile at their position, but they might move. Now, I suppose we should pass it in anyways. We can change it on impact, but if there's ever a spell that homes in on the target, then we would need that information. So we can pass it in anyways. So enemy.get component actor player, or player actor, player actor. Okay. And then finally, again, we're passing the position, oops, and then the there we go. Passing the wrong thing. Almost made a bug. All right. Okay. So there we go. Still an error. Why is there still an error? Okay. Setup for cast spell projectile. We're not doing this at all anymore. So we would cut that out. And then is projectile on this. We need to pass these along now as well. So we're going to pass along. No, not necessarily there. So if it's a projectile, it needs a specific script on it. I might have bugs. I might have errors, but we'll ignore those. So if we look at our projectile magic spell, we have move forward, we have collision, move forward magic missile. Yeah. So I'm going to put that at magic spell, whether it's a projectile and the target. Whoops. Assume it's not, unless it's set that it is. And then we'll create this up here as well. Do we already have that? Oh. Interesting. We do already have that via the item attribute. Okay, well, how would we use this in practice? What we're trying to say here is, if it is a projectile, then we're not going to do any of this unless it's triggered. So we'll say if is projectile and not triggered. Or triggered, yeah. Then return. So if this is a projectile and we haven't been triggered, i.e. haven't hit a target, then return. Haven't. All right, because once it does hit the target, that will trigger it, and once it's triggered, then it will do the targeting the solo player, which we will pass through via the trigger. So we'll do this public void trigger trigger effects, and we're going to pass in player target solo player, and here we'll do if target solo. Yeah, we'll just say triggered equals true, and target solo player equals new solo player. Can we not do that? Is that what we have? Where's our has solo player, solo target player? All right. And we need triggered to be set up here, so let's do that. Private bool triggered, public bool triggered. Oops. Okay. Spell it right. Okay, so that means if we pass in, we're gonna pass in a new player. It might be null. So default to null. So whoever we hit, and that's gonna come from this arrow collision script, which we still need to update. All right, so now it should work. And also, I'm gonna remove this script. Actually, what I'm going to do is add the new ones first. Magic spell. Move up. Move up. Move up. Move up. Okay. Wait, I gotta fix this first. Alright, so this is on arrow collision AOE. So I'm going to just comment this out for now and type June 16 commented out to fix error, just to get, we're going to update that, but I just want to get this error so this can compile and I can do the next step. Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good time listening to me ramble on. Ooh, the dog just shot up because I said hi or something. Oh, he's so sad. All he wants to do is like go O-U-T. I can't say the words, W-A-L-K, those words, because that's what he wants. He found a raccoon in a drainage pipe yesterday. Now he just wants to keep going out there and seeing if the raccoon's still there. It wasn't there earlier. All right. So now we got that. So I'm going to take this curve. I'll just make a new one. So copy this curve over there. Remove that. All right. And then move forward magic missile. That's fine. We'll leave that. We'll leave that. And let me change this one as well. I'm just going to fix all of these before I remove the scripts entirely. All right. It'll take the same fall off curve. Doesn't really matter right now. And remove that. So anything that's not a projectile doesn't need this arrow collision. That's going to be one of the benefits. And so there's no area effect at all for this one. So I'm not going to set the curve or anything else. Oh, but the meteor did need that delay, and I think it was 0.7 and 2 or 1. Maybe it was 0.2 and 0.7. It was something like that, but the math was weird. It wasn't acting right. But anyways, that's fine. Okay. And then magic missile is the last one. Oh, I guess cunning, I've got that too. All right, so let me add that here. Magic spell projectile. Magic spell. Move up, move up, move up. Okay, so nothing special about it. Yep. And then cunning is also a magic spell. Remove component. Okay, and everything else, delete that. We don't need that. We'll delete and unpack. I don't know what that means, so I'm going to cancel. All right, that should be good. So now I can delete those scripts. Magic spell, instant, these three. Okay. Okay, that should solve that bug for now. Oh, thanks, Darsha. Dara. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your Jason Wyman, you're still listening? I'm surprised. I mean, I know you've got like 18,000 kids to take care of, but, you know. All right. What's the next step? The next step is to... Well, I've got all these other actions. On my actions thing, we're doing cast spell at point, but let's see, we really need to see how many places are we doing setup. Only one usage? Only cast spell at point? Well, that's the issue here. We're going to have to do this, but in a lot of different other places. Because, yes, we're doing cast spell at point in all these different places, but we are also casting spells in different other ways, too. So mouse click leads to that, but what if we're not doing the mouse click? What if we do... What if we're doing the spell on deck actions? Spell on deck actions, that's a thing. Okay. So spell on deck can cast on player. If spell on deck can cast on player, then player select actions, and that is important. That's the place where we might select a player and then cast a spell on deck on the player. Ah, see? So this is more efficient because I was doing all of this before, and this is where, for those of you who, oh, it's a made-up name. Well, then I'll keep calling you Dara. See, Jason, I don't know how you can code your own stuff while listening to me talk about coding. It's kind of like when you're trying to count and someone just starts saying random numbers. It's very difficult for my brain. Anyways, so earlier we had this in the, well, I can show it actually in the spells in our Magic Missile Novice. We had this portrait particle up here, and instead of a prefab, we have a string and an audio clip, and that is where this comes into play here. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to change this to be a object instead, and yeah, so all right, so the new version is going to be up here. What did we do before? Before we took the projectile and turned it on, and then we played the audio clip, and then we did the conditions. We don't have to handle this anymore. That's going to be handled by this effects thing. Reduce the magic points for the caster. That should be handled in a different place. Okay, so I am going to have to do a debug log for that because I want, well, yeah, this is going to be moved to a different spot. Okay, so when we do that, we need to do magic spell setup. Let me see, where is this? So if we're doing it on the player, we don't need to worry about in-world objects. We do need to do an instantiation of the prefab, which we'll handle. I'll just do a debug to do that later. Oh, okay, we do the try get. Okay. I see. Okay, so all right, so what I'm thinking here. Okay, background sound. I guess that makes sense. So I got it here. So this is attached to particles, essentially. Particle objects that almost always have particles. It could be a projectile, could be just a particle, could be a particle on a portrait. Either way, that's an object in the game. That's why we're passing all the data to this magic spell, which is attached to that particle. Now, for the portrait particle, there's going to be attached to that as well. So we're going to do a very similar thing to this, as this. This method's too long. What? Did I see the error there? It's so long that my errors don't show in the side here. Okay. So we're going to instantiate the prefab, but in this case, we're going to instantiate the spell on deck, dictionaries. Actually, okay. This is what we'll do. Var in world spell object, and we're actually going to change this to portrait object equals spell on deck dot dictionaries dot value prefab for portrait particle. Okay, and then we're going to instantiate that, but first we're going to check and make sure it's not null. If in world equals null, then debug.log error, and we will say that spell on deck dot object name does not have a portrait particle assigned. Okay. So there are spells that could be cast on both targets in the world and the player portraits, which is why they're separate, because the particle is going to be very different. In this flow, we're casting it on the player, so it means we clicked a portrait, and we're going to use the portrait particle. Okay. So the audio is going to be assigned to the portrait particle to play on awake type of thing. Or not. Probably not. Yeah. It'll probably be assigned to that. That makes more sense to assign it to that than to assign it here. So, all right, so we do that, and then we return if we have none. And we return false, because it means we did not cast it on the player. But they did click it, so I'm just going to return true. God, no. I'll just return. Okay, I'll return true, and I will also do the cleanup stuff because I don't want to get in the situation where there's a basically a loop where I can't clear this out because I don't have the portrait particle assigned. So it will clear it out, no effect, but it clears everything out and then allows the game to continue. All right, instantiate the prefab. So we're instantiating this. Not sure how we're going to do this. I'm going to have to do some testing on the positioning because this is like rec transform stuff. So what we're just going to say right now is player portrait dot game dot player portraits dot transform dot position. I'll just do that for now, and we're going to say debug dot log to do fix the position. Okay, so we're instantiating the world project at the right position. Figure that out later, and try get. If we don't, then we do have to do this stuff too. So I'm going to make this into a method as well. We're going to say private void clear spell on deck. Oh shit, I already have clear spell on deck. So end of spell cast cleanup. Call it that. So clear the spell on deck, return, revert, game time. So this is all we have to do instead. That will be a little bit easier. Okay. And we'll do that down here as well. And then clear spell on deck. Clean up things. Okay. That's better. Alright, so clean up. If we don't have the magic spell attached to it, then say that and return true. Alright, then we do the setup. So caster is the active player. We pass in our attribute. Then we need caster attribute targets a solo player as null. True for the portrait, and the player index is new player. And we need to do a thing on whether it targets the whole party. So this is going to be another to-do for me. I'll just set that up later. I don't want to get rid of my flow. Debug.log to-do handle whole party spells. So that's basically going to be like, look it up, and if it's a whole party, then we'll pass in -1. Otherwise, we'll pass in whoever was clicked on. And okay. So we don't need to do this portrait particle. We don't need to do this. We're not doing the conditions. Reduce magic points for caster. I'm going to move this into another method. Debug or private void reduce magic points for caster. Just call it that. And I think we're going to have to add this elsewhere too. Yeah, so anywhere we do magic spell.setup. In fact, end of spell cleanup. Reduce. No, because we might not have cast it. So only when we successfully cast it do we do this. Okay. And we do the cleanup before we do the clearing, or the cleanup after reducing. Okay, that's important. All right, so on player, we make sure we have a spell on deck. We make sure that it can cast on the player. And if it can't, then we just return false. In-world object, if we don't, then we just say, hey, error, and clean up. And then we instantiate that object, figure out the position later. If we, for some reason, don't have that, then we'll clean up and return true and just clear that. Throw an error. Then to do the setup of the magic spell component. So active player is the caster. Attribute, not a target player. Yes on the portraits and the new player. Okay, so that part should work. Am I missing other spell casting? It's really whether we do it at a point or whether we do on the portrait. That's the only two options. That's part of the reason why I wanted to redo this, because really those are the only two options, unless, unless the space bar is hit. Keycode.space, interact key. So, interact key cast spell. Look at that. Look at that. All right, so found Distance, try to cast spell on enemy, goes to cast spell at point. So that works too. All right. I wonder if it will just magically work now. So it won't currently do the collision. I haven't done that yet. But let's see if the other stuff works. I'm going to get a bug for the portrait. Okay. Let's stop it and fix that first. Preemptively fix my bug. All right, so if we go to our item attributes for the spells and our portrait particle, I'm going to make the prefab exposed and hide the other two. And then going back to my inspector here. So the prefab, I don't, do I have, maybe I do, what do I have in my prefabs? Portraits, I don't know, I'll just do this one. I think that's the one that was being used, but, okay, so that's our portrait particle. All right, let's press play and see what happens. Okay, so player 3 has the spell Cunning. Let's learn that. Oh, this dog might suddenly bark.
This will come in handy.
Hold on one second. Well, that takes care of the dog. Dog's still alive, don't worry. I would never kill a dog. Come on. Jeez, you guys are crazy. All right. Cast this. So now this technically should be able to cast only on... Well, actually, cast on them too. But let's see if it works. Cunning does not have a portrait particle assigned. Oh. Cunning. Cunning, cunning, cunning. Cunning, cunning, cunning. Where's cunning? Let's see. Spells. Cunning. Settings. Dictionaries. Portrait particle. Yeah, okay, so I'll just do the same healing one. That should be good. Oh, and maybe target particle wasn't working because that was also not assigned. Okay. So those should work now. Let's see. No. What was the... Okay. Woo. A lot of bugs here. Unassigned mesh object of that. What? Well, that's the issue. This is not my issue, but I'm gonna have to stop it to fix the issue. This is on the healing thing. This is yeah. So that is the particle that I was using before, but it uses the mesh effects package from the asset store, which is great, but it has some scripts on it that I haven't set up properly in this regard. I think that's why they were already on the character, because I had issues with it, but essentially that just needs to be turned off. And let me just open the prefab, see if there's anything else. Sometimes there's other scripts on this. There are not. Okay. All right, let's try again. I need to quit Unity and load it up again to make the startup and slow down, or play and stop play faster. Inventory.
This will come in handy.
I'm going to skip number 2. Oh my gosh. All right, screw this. So, oh, I accidentally pressed it twice, I think. So that error was again with the same damn particle. I'm just going to use a different particle because these errors have nothing to do with what we just did, and it's just delaying me, and it's annoying. All right, so we have cunning. Instead of healing, we are going to do just a random one of these other particles. We will do Soul Explosion. And yeah. Okay. Now. Yeah, I'm guessing like something keeps just building up in the Unity editor. But it's not so bad right now.
This will come in handy.
All right. So something happened. None of my debug logs triggered though. So, I mean, that sound was the sound of the particle being instantiated, but don't I have debug logs attached? On player. Spell on deck can cast on player. Select player actions. Select player. Cast spell on deck on player. This should have... Oh. I didn't have those turned on. Okay. Cast spell on deck on player. Fix the position. Handle the whole party. Cost is 0. Found 0 in radius. Oh. This technically shouldn't have happened, right? Handle actor effects should not have happened because this should have been a Oh, we didn't handle that, I guess. Actions. Cast spell on deck on player. My magic setup gives the active player solo target is null, solo target player is true, and new player. Or portrait is true and new player. So here we're doing solo target portrait and player index. Both are being assigned. Where is it being used? Nowhere. Ha. So that's where we need to handle that in here as well. Target solo player. So if it is a projectile and it's not triggered, then return. It's not a projectile. If target portrait, then return. Target portrait. And we'll create that method. All right. Return false. So if we're not targeting, if solo target is portrait, if that's not true, then we'll return false. Wait a minute. Return if we are... Oh, wait. So I did start doing this. Solo effects on player. Okay, so solo effects has solo. Oh, so I do need to. Has solo target player. This is okay. Okay, so target solo player is essentially not solo effects on player. It is solo effects on actor. And that's why we're saying if it's portrait, then return. So really, we should be doing this one up here. And if it's not portrait, then we return false. And then we do the solo effects on the player. And the solo effects on the player. So if the target is not the portrait, return. Okay. Send the flex to the player greater than equal to 0. Then we do that index. Okay. Let's try that. I know. Oh, okay, okay. You must be in a different time zone entirely. All right. Let's see this work. All we're looking for is that last debug log that says the player received the order to take damage from an object or to effects from an object. So, inventory, learn the spell,
This will come in handy.
cast a spell on this player. Okay, well, it keeps gain hit, so that's something. I mean, Robard got hit by Cunning Novice, sent by Lorena with a distance mod of 1. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see, but we didn't want to see it so many times. So clearly, this keeps gain triggered. Which one line was it? 181. What? Okay. 181 keeps getting triggered right here. And that's because we didn't say that it was done. And we need to do that. If complete, then return. Private bool complete equals false. So essentially, at the end of each one of these, we just need to say it's complete. So both of those, and then initial effect, AoE effect. At the end of AoE effect, we can say true. we can't say that at the initial unless those are the same, and that's going to be here. And so if separate effects, then we'll return, and otherwise we will set both of these to be true as well. There we go. There we go. So that now has all 4 paths. The initial effect, if they does both, will set it complete. AoE will set it complete otherwise. And then the solo ones on the portraits and the solo will all mark complete. And if it's complete, then we'll return and we won't do any more actions after midnight. Europeans. Well, you're not going to get to see all of it working because I haven't done the collision on the arrow. But if this part works, then that really implies that the rest will work pretty easily. And I have to say, this script is much cleaner now and simpler than the previous way I was doing it. And I think I cut out a fair amount of code from the action script as well, which is good because that script is way too long.
This will come in handy.
Look at that. She got hit by herself only once. All right, let's see what happens when you cast another spell. Whoops. Inventory, we'll learn
This
spell.
will come in handy.
I don't know what's going to happen because I don't remember what spell this is. All right, so we got that working. It's targeting enemies. That's good. And let's just cast it here. All right, so yeah, it's got issues. This is probably issues with the arrow collision, so I need to update that. But you guys, you can go to bed now because it is working. And now I'm going to be taking a break. I need to take a break. Wait, it's 3 hours. Yeah, it's been 3 hours on the dot since I started, so there we go. I've always found 3 hours is pretty much where I'm like, okay, I'm getting tired. 4 hours, I'm like, I gotta stop this stream. 2 hours is like, maybe it's time to stop the stream. But 3 hours is that's my point at which I'm like, done, son. So yeah, I gotta fix the arrow collision stuff. That should be much easier now than it was before. And I might have to add some code to trigger things that aren't projectiles. So I'll look into that. And then I need to make sure that the magic spell cost is being deducted properly. And of course that the effects are being sent over properly. And once that's the case, then I can set up these various magic spells and it should do various effects and have a hold on the stats and all that. So that is the magic spell system once it was working properly. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know 9 are watching. There's only 7 likes. And I'm sure that in the midst of all this, there's probably been dozens and dozens of people who came and watched it and decided they didn't like it. So they didn't click anything. But definitely thank you for coming out and watching and for chatting. Jason, I hope your coding goes well. Yeah, and I'll see you all next time. It's been fun. I'm going to do more on this today. I'm just not going to stream it because I can't stream all day. And maybe I could. That would be something. Streaming all day. Ugh. I don't know. Thanks.